well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam and Company. My name is Cam Edwards. I'm glad you're with us on the program. You know what we're going to be talking about today, right? Yeah. Mark Walters is going to join us from Armed America Radio to discuss the plea deal for one Hunter Biden, who will avoid prison time, despite admitting in writing that, he was an unlawful user of drugs at the same time he purchased a firearm a few years ago. I have a lot to say about this, but I'm going to hold off until we get to Mark's interview here. Before we get to that, however, when you make choice about where to put your hard-earned dollars, you're supporting not only the company that made the product, but the values and the principles of that organization, right? It's easier to flip a switch against a company where they blatantly conflict with your values, but do you make an effort to do business with the companies that support what you believe when you can? Well, do yourself a favor and give Defender Ammunition Company a shot. These guys are veteran-owned and operated. Every person on their staff, military-connected, huge supporters of the military community, backing causes that are actually making a difference in the lives of those that have served. In fact, every penny from all of the sales of their logoed gear goes directly to the charities that they back. These companies want to support. Their ammo's top-notch. Their customer service is great. One other shipping department actually writes handwritten thank you notes to their customers. Give these guys a try. They've thrown us a promo code to use through the end of the month, and that code is Bearing Arms. Good for 5% off your order. Trust me, once you give these guys a try, you won't be going anywhere else. Check them out at defenderammunition.com. Hunter Biden, the plea deal. He gets to plead guilty to a couple of misdemeanor tax offenses. The felony gun charge, kind of wiped away, right? Pretrial diversion, no prison time whatsoever. It's amazing. As Brett Tolman, the executive director of Right on Crime, noted on Twitter, DOJ violating its own internal policies on this case. The Ashcroft memo requires that they charge the, quote, highest provable offense and seek consistent sentences with other cases brought by DOJ. This prosecution is an absolute laughable joke, he wrote. Thousands have been sent to prison for similar offenses here for the very same charge. He says they're ignoring decades of policy and precedent to seek felonies, not misdemeanors, and seek sentences within the guideline range. The diversion agreement on the felony is offensive to everyone not politically connected who sought diversions and who were literally laughed at by DOJ. He went on to say thousands of people have been prosecuted under Project Safe Neighborhoods by DOJ. They brag about getting nearly 5 years of prison time on average for their gun cases. If they followed policy, Hunter would be looking at a minimum of 5 years in federal prison. But he's a Biden. Now, I will say I'm very intrigued by Tolman's reference to the Ashcroft memo. I will say that it is not unheard of for defendants who are charged with being an unlawful user of drugs while possessing a firearm to receive less than 5 years in prison. But it is pretty unusual for them not to receive any prison time. The federal guidelines suggest somewhere between 10 and 16 months in prison. I did a cursory look, just a cursory search, just a couple minutes. Found a case out of Virginia last year where an individual was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. There was another case in 2019 where a 24-year-old was sentenced to, I believe it was 18 to 21 months in federal prison. There was another case last year involving a defendant out of Connecticut who was sentenced to probation, but the judge gave him probation. The U.S. Attorney's Office, DOJ, was actually asking for, I believe it was 18 to 24 months in prison, and the judge said, no, that's not appropriate. This person was smoking marijuana in a state where it's legal, so no, 3 years probation instead. But again, that wasn't what the federal government wanted. A judge departed from the request by the DOJ to give probation because DOJ was asking for a prison sentence. Now, we can discuss and maybe even disagree about whether or not this law is a good thing, whether it should be on the books, but it is on the books. DOJ is prosecuting people. DOJ is sending people to prison for this crime, just not Hunter Biden. So let's talk about this with Mark Walters, host of Armed American Radio. Take a look and a listen. Mark, thank you so much for coming on Cam and Company today. Let's get right to it, man. Your reaction to this incredible plea deal that Hunter Biden's getting.
Well, do you want the cynic or do you want the real me? Let's go with the cynic because the cynic is the real me anymore, Cam. First, it's great to see you. It's great to hear your voice. It's great to be here with you today. Thanks for having me on. Look, the real me is going to come out on this. Why wouldn't he take the deal? Why wouldn't he? Look, if my dad were the president of the United States and said to me, look, this doesn't look good. It looks like we're weaponized. We're getting some bad press here. We're running for re-election. You're going to be the fall guy, but don't worry about it. It's not going to impact your life, but maybe for about 12 to maybe 24 months, because I'm going to pardon you anyway. I'd take that deal too, wouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look,
but no-brainer.
But so from what we're hearing, Mark, this is going to come with basically pretrial diversion, right?
Right.
So, I mean, his life's not going to be impacted at all. He's going to plead guilty to a couple of these misdemeanor tax offenses, get probation. The gun charge gets basically dismissed outright if he keeps his nose clean for a couple of years, which, again, shouldn't be an issue for Hunter Biden, given all of the interference that's being run for him.
Right.
So this absolutely makes sense from Hunter Biden's perspective. From a prosecutor's perspective, though, what the hell is going on here? I mean, Mark, you and I have seen these stories of people who are facing the exact same charge that Hunter Biden's facing, and they're getting prison time. Even when they plead guilty, they're getting prison time.
Pretrial diversion wouldn't be an option for you or I, or for anybody else. I mean, come on. The whole country knows what's going on here. This stinks. It smacks of what we knew would likely happen. Why do you think the timing is what it is today? I asked myself that question. Look, I was watching a local Fox thing just to see the weather today when the crawler popped up and the story broke, right? And I sat up and I thought, you've got to be kidding me. All the issues with Trump going on, the weaponized DOJ, the ATF catching a bunch of flack, 5.5 years of investigation. Let's throw this out now. And let's make it look like, hey, this DOJ is not weaponized. Look, we're even going after the president's own son, who, by the way, can pardon him, and we'll just put him in a pretrial diversion, and it's really not going to make a difference anyway. But it sure will look good to all of our Kool-Aid drinking followers, won't it? The whole thing smells. It just smells. But right, I can't blame Hunter Biden. I can't blame Biden. I would take the same deal.
I would too. I mean, I don't listen. This is a win-win for the Bidens. Although I want to get into the politics of this in a second, but I guess there's still a slim possibility. I'll say the cynic in me doesn't think it's going to happen. But Brett Tolman, who's the executive director of Right on Crime, tweeted out this morning that DOJ is violating its own internal policies in this case. The Ashcroft memo requires that they charge the highest provable offense and seek consistent sentences with other cases brought by DOJ. So I suppose, Mark, that there is a slim possibility that the judge overseeing this case rejects this plea deal and says, no, I'm not going to accept this. But I don't see that happening either, to be honest, man. I don't.
I'm with you on that 100%. I looked at all angles of this myself. And again, what difference does it make to Hunter Biden when daddy can fix everything at the right time? Really, the biggest fear that Hunter Biden has, regardless of what they do, is my dad going to remember to pardon me before he leaves office? But we all know Dr. Jill's going to be there. And do you trust anything that comes? Look at me laughing over this. I'm laughing out loud over this. Here's why. Do you really believe anything that comes from this DOJ? Do we believe anything that comes from the media anymore? If we're not cynics at this point, we're guilty as the other side is. We have to question everything that comes from this, everything that comes from the other side. Do you really believe that, let's just say, for example, here's the cynic in me, Joe Biden is incapacitated mentally? Somebody's just going to say, oh, he signed this before he became incapacitated. They'll produce a document and nobody will do anything. Nobody's ever held accountable. Nobody believes anything anymore. We live in an upside down world. Look, I want to ask this question. Nikki Fried. Why is Nikki Fried walking around Florida? What does that have to do with the conversation? Nikki Fried's on videotape and photographs holding up a medical marijuana card, yet she's a gun possessor. And the ATF goes after everybody else and warns Minnesotans, as you and I talked about. And Nikki Fried's walking around. It's selective prosecution. But guess what? Why go after Nikki Fried? We got bigger fish to fry. We can make it look like we're going after Hunter Biden, and we can finally get him on his gun charge, and then daddy can pardon him, and nobody cares. Oh, Cam, I throw my hands up anymore, brother. But I tell you this, they give us content every day. Their job security, right? That's just me being me on these responses. It's laughable, bro.
It is laughable, but it's also infuriating because, I mean, as you say, DOJ is still going to prosecute these charges if you're not Hunter Biden, if you're not Nikki Fried, if you're not, powerful, connected to the Democratic Party, you're still going to get charged. I mean, you and I have talked about this before, Mark. Mm-hmm. My wife I don't know if celebrate is the right word, but we just passed the 7-year anniversary of the day she went to the hospital and the doctors discovered a mass in her lung. And
congratulations on that. We're doing it here. We just hit 5 years. So I feel you. Congratulations to Missy on that.
So as you know, man, and same with your bride. I mean, I would love for my wife to be able to, we live in a state where medical marijuana is legalized, recreational marijuana is legalized. I've seen her lose 40 pounds in a matter of weeks because she has no appetite and the chemo just wrecked her body. I would love for my wife to be able to, alleviate those symptoms by, having an edible, eating a pot brownie once in a while.
Yeah.
But she can't. Not without losing her Second Amendment rights, not without running the risk of dying in federal prison, being taken away from her wife, from her husband and kids. I want to know how the hell DOJ, how Biden rationalizes any prosecution going forward on these charges.
They simply don't care. The optics mean nothing to them. Box checker KJB is going to stand up and say what she says. She's look, Cam, how many times have we said this? These people will look at a camera at midnight and tell you the sun is shining with a straight face. And they will get away with it because none of the lamestream legacy media from ABC and NBC, so we can CBS, will stand up and say, well, wait a minute, that's not true. It's dark behind me. It's dark out. It's midnight. I know because I'm looking at my watch. None of them will do that. None of them will question her. And they get away with this. Again, I got to take this to Newsom. Why did they get away with this? Let's go to Newsom. When you're in total control and you have complete, absolute power, you can do these things. And you can also believe the media hype that comes with you because that's why you have power. There is nobody out there that can hold you accountable or even will try to. That's why they get away with this. I don't know how we stop it. I wish I had the answer to that. But I feel the same way you do. This is a subject we've talked about for years. I've warned listeners, if you have a medical marijuana card, buddy, you are on a list. And your name's not Hunter Biden or Nikki Fried, you got a problem on your hands because they will come after you. And let's face it, I'm sure that you're not on anybody's radar, Cam. They wouldn't want to make an example of you, would they, or me? I mean, I throw my pen down. I really, truly don't know. But it is shocking. I looked at this today and I laughed out loud. My wife yelled downstairs, "What is so funny?" I said, Hunter Biden is just putting together a plea deal. And I just stopped myself.
So let's talk about the politics of this, because I actually, I said this was a win-win for the Bidens. Obviously, I think it's a win-win for Hunter. I think it's a win for Joe Biden as a dad.
Right.
I'm not sure this is actually all that great for Joe Biden as a candidate for president in 2024, because Marcus,
I agree.
He's been out there on the stub. We need more gun laws. Congress needs to do its job. I can only do so much. Well, here's a pretty perfect example of how the current laws on the books are not being enforced.
Yeah. So,
Joe Biden's running out there. Well, we need to ban these guns. We need to do this and that. His own son facing felony charges of lying on a 4473 about being an unlawful user of drugs. He gets the slap on the wrist. He gets it on his merry way. Joe Biden, to me, has lost, well, not that he had any credibility to begin with, but I think that for a lot of the average voters out there, a lot of the non-gun owners, non-2A voters, Joe Biden's lost a lot of credibility here by this very high-profile nature of his son facing felony charges and now going to skate.
Well, let me play a little devil's advocate. I don't disagree with you often, ever, and I'm not going to disagree with you here. In a perfect world where we had an honest media, everything you said would ring 100% true. But here's what's going to happen, and you and I both know this. It's going to get a ton of coverage right now. That's why they did it now. Timing is everything. Get it out of the way now, because you think the mainstream press is going to even talk about this going forward? Absolutely not. They'll cover it now because they have to. They're going to throw it right out the window. It isn't going to be, nobody's going to ask him about it. I would be shocked if, number one, if he debates anybody, whether it's in a primary or whether it's in a general. And if he does, and he's asked about it, I don't think he will be asked about it, quite frankly. That's my point. Mainstream media is not going to hassle him on it. It's a one-time shot. Let's get this out of the way today, right now. We'll make Hunter look good. Why does Hunter look good? I'm owning up to it. I'm going to plead guilty. My son did. It's just the cynic in me will not go away at this stage of the game. I don't think it's going to harm them because the media won't let them. They're protecting him. And that's a terrible thing to say. I hate to have to say it, but look at the evidence. Look at the evidence.
Listen, I love, by the way, we disagree with one another because we always make, I'm going to disagree, but I'm going to disagree. So here's my rebuttal to you, because I do think you make some good points, but the mainstream media is not the gatekeeper that they once were.
That's true.
So if it were only up to the mainstream media, you're right. They're going to be giving Joe Biden a tongue bath between now and November 2024, right? And they're going to, set up this wall of protection around him where they're going to try to keep him as protected from any scandal as they possibly can. But they're not the only source of information out there these days. And so I think this is one of those things that the people, you're right. It's a long time between now and next November. But I think this is going to be brought up every time Joe Biden starts talking about gun control. We will be bringing this up.
We certainly will. Yes.
The right will be bringing this up. Now, look, Biden can say, well, I look, there was a special prosecutor. I had nothing to do with this. I just don't think that many people are going to buy that. Even if Biden didn't apply pressure directly, there is indirect pressure applied on anybody who is going after the son of the sitting president. I don't care if it's a special prosecutor. I don't care if they're supposedly free of influence. They're not. We know how this game works. And here's my inner cynic coming out. Mm-hmm. So I don't think this is something that Biden is going to be able to. You're right. I don't think it's going to be brought up during debates. He'll get a question or two today, or Catherine Jean-Pierre will. And they'll say exactly what you just said, right? Well, he's taking responsibility. We're going to look forward to putting this behind us, blah, 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 blah. I just don't think that. I think this is going to be a something that hangs around Joe Biden between now and next year. Every time he starts talking about guns, we're going to bring up the fact your son committed a felony offense. Your son should be in prison right now. But because DOJ is not fully enforcing the law, he's walking around free as a bird. So why are you going after me? Why are you going after my wife? Why are you going after cancer patients? Why are you going after people who own a brace, disabled Americans who own a brace? You're trying to put them in prison. Yeah. I think this actually opens the door for a lot of legitimate attacks on Joe Biden's anti-Second Amendment record.
Here's my rebuttal to your rebuttal to my rebuttal. The country is so divided right now. Let's juxtapose this to Trump, for example. Let's use Trump as an example. Trump supporters are lining up behind Trump. He's charged with what? I've lost count of how many felonies the DOJ has come out in between Bragg and the DOJ. What, 65 felonies? You got Atlanta lined up. She's being told, just wait until we get closer to the election, then dump some more charges on Trump. It's not affecting him because the country is so divided. Again, the cynic in me. Democrats aren't going to care about this. And when it's brought up, they're going to encamp. They're going to hunker down. And they don't care about it. They're just going to blame the Republicans. Look, when we talk about other media out there, you're absolutely spot on. It's hard for them to control the Twitter sphere, right? It's going to be out there on Twitter all the time. But you know what? From what I understand, less than 12% of Americans use Twitter. The mainstream media doesn't even consider Breitbart a real news source. They don't even care. So the left-wing media, and again, as much as I hate to admit this, Americans wake up, but better than 70% of Americans still get their news, believe it or not, from ABC and NBC so they can CBS on those evening news programs. Even with Fox is out there, and Fox is a big disappointment to me lately. I've been hard on them lately for good measure, okay? Lots of different reasons, quoting the gun violence archives nonsense, quoting the Biden lies that, guns are the leading cause of death in children, all this other nonsense out there. You just don't know who you can trust. But I believe the country's so divided, they'll rally around him. They'll just simply rally around him and blame it on the right, and they'll have big, powerful media to help them do that. I hate where we are in this country. I hate it because I'm old enough to remember when a real journalist would have asked a real question, and then when they didn't get the answer they wanted and they knew they were being BS'd, they would have investigated it, and guess what would have happened? It could have brought down a presidency. We've lost that. We have lost that. And without that protection that the Constitution gives the press and the media actually using that protection that they're given in our First Amendment, we're in a world of hurt here because everybody just believes what they want, regardless of what's out there. Look, I know where to go to get news that fits my opinions, right? I know where to go to get news that counters my opinions. We watch what we want. We see what we want. We hear what we want. And I just don't know. I'm not convinced of that. I hope you are spot dead on. And you are I believe that it will come up. It's just how much is it going to sink in? How much coverage is it going to get and what type of coverage is it going to be? Clearly, we're going to be all over. I'm going to be, hey guys, you're looking at my show today at 4:00. Okay. Pretty much that's, and probably tomorrow and Sunday and, 6 days a week. So yeah, I hope to God you're right, Cam. I really do.
Well, listen, I don't think you can go wrong by taking the cynical point of view these days. My rooster, Mr. Crow, agrees, by the way. He's a huge fan of yours, Mark. Every time we have you on, he wants to come over and hang out in front of the microphone. But
I love it, man. I love it.
And maybe this is just the eternal optimist in me. But I do think that if the left rallies around, Hunter Biden, if they want to defend this plea deal, okay, then we get to talk about gun control, and let's talk about your position, because why on earth does Hunter Biden get a pass, but cancer patients who want to be able to have a concealed carry license don't? I mean, where's the standard there?
You know what's really something we haven't touched on politically here. What it's really going to take is it's going to take the Republicans in the House and the Senate to get very vocal and very loud about this and continue the drumbeat on this. They can talk about it today all they want, and they will. Ted Cruz will be out there. They'll all be out there talking about this. But they've got to stay on this, and they've got to stay on this through the election. I'm just not so convinced. What's McConnell going to say? McConnell ought to be talking about this on the floor of the Senate. Cruz ought to be talking about this. The House. I mean, this should be a huge topic of conversation going forward up through the election. And I don't know that I have that much confidence in Republican quote unquote leaders at this point to do that. I'm hopeful that I'm wrong in everything I'm saying there, but I don't know. Again, I'm looking at what I'm seeing with my eyes and hearing, and it's hard to do today because you look at this stuff and go, wow, is it really light out? It's midnight, but is it really? They have a way to gaslight people that works. And it's powerful stuff, man. It really is powerful, but it is fun to talk about for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to listening to Armed America Radio this afternoon. I appreciate you joining us on the program today, Mark. And again, everything you do, man, thanks for every bit of your activism and your information, because it is desperately needed these days.
And right back at you, brother. Thanks for having me on, Cam. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. We'll talk to you soon.
You bet. Appreciate
Mark joining us on the program. And we're going to be talking about this, I know, probably quite a bit between now in November of 2024. Right now, let's turn our attention to today's armed citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, which also involves the son of a Democratic politician. Actually, before we get to that, let's talk about something else real quick. Joe Biden's America is crushing us, and not just in the judicial system. You've got companies laying off tens of thousands of workers, one after the other. Americans working 2 jobs to get by. Inflation pushing hardworking families to the brink. Hell, just look at the price of lunch meat these days. And a digital dollar could be coming down the pipeline to completely destroy our way of life. The truth is, you need a plan. You know it, and I know it. And that's why you should call Goldco, so you can diversify your savings and investments with gold and silver before things get worse. They're a 6-time Inc. 5000 winner, 2022 Company of the Year, with thousands of 5-star reviews, and have helped people like you and me place over $1 billion in gold and silver. They're offering up to $10,000 in free silver while supplies last. And if you call them today, qualified callers will get a free Ronald Reagan half-ounce silver coin. So don't wait. Call Goldco at 855-412-3806 today. That's Goldco at 855-412-3806. All right, now let's talk about what's going on in Minnesota, where the son of an expelled Democrat representative is now the suspect in a hit-and-run crash that killed 5 women, all under the age of 20, after previously being convicted of a hit-and-run in California back in 2018. Derek John Thompson, back in 2020, actually, it wasn't even 2018. That's when the hit-and-run occurred, but the sentence wasn't handed down until February of 2020. And Derek John Thompson in California received 8 years behind bars for a hit-and-run accident that left a woman in a coma for several weeks, life-altering injuries. Derek John Thompson had 17.6 pounds of marijuana, more than $20,000 in cash in the vehicle at the time of that crash. Again, sentenced to 8 years in prison. But he got 507 days time served while he was awaiting trial. He got another 75 days good credit time off. But he still should have been behind bars. Honestly, that was about 3 years, but he still should have had about 5.5 years to serve. So what's going on? Well, the Santa Barbara DA's office told Fox News Digital, based on the fact that he was sentenced to a violent felony, statutorily, the defendant would have been required to serve 85% of his time, meaning he would have had close to 5.5 years left to serve for the time of his sentencing. However, they went on to say, California Prop 57, passed in 2016, changed potential credit calculations and gave the Corrections Department wide latitude to award additional custody credits as well as early parole opportunities. The DA's office told Fox News Digital that it had no information regarding when or why Thompson would have been released earlier, which makes me wonder if they were even contacted by the California Department of Corrections before Thompson was released. But again, at some point in the not too distant past, he was released and was out and about last week when he allegedly ran a red light, collided with a vehicle carrying 5 Somali women, all under the age of 20. He was treated for his injuries over the weekend, but and now again facing all kinds of charges. This didn't have to happen. And I guess if you are a politician's child, you want to commit a crime, your last name isn't Biden, next best thing is to just go to California and do it, because you won't get the pretrial diversion that Hunter Biden received, but you will still get plenty of slaps on the wrist. Today's armed citizen story from North Carolina, where police in Johnston County say a dad killed an intruder on Father's Day after his kids encountered the suspect. This happened about 9 o'clock Sunday night. Deputies in Johnston County reported or sent out on a call of a break-in and entering. And they were informed while they were on the way that the homeowner had shot the intruder. When they got to the tiny town of Wilson's Mills, they made contact with the Wilson's Mills police and EMS. Wilson's Mills police chief actually asked the deputy sheriffs to take over the investigation, and they did. Through the investigation, WNCN reports it was determined that an unidentified male intruder had been shot after he first made contact with the homeowner's children and then attempted to break into the home. The homeowner, still present at the scene, described as being fully cooperative with investigators. The investigation does remain ongoing, but at this point, sounds like a pretty clear-cut case of not only self-defense, but defense of others as well. We'll keep our eyes on this story, bring you more details if and when they become available. Finally today, our good deed of the day, in the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. Some Eagle Scouts in Kentucky who saved the life of a Louisville man who suffered a heart attack while he was swimming. This was actually at a Boy Scouts of America Camp Crooked Creek in Kentucky. They were doing a 550-meter swim to earn their lifeguard certification. 73-year-old Bruce Otto, who's a volunteer scout leader and an avid swimmer, was taking the test, and the aquatics director, MJ Todd, noticed him slowing down and then started to float face down in the lake. So Todd blew his whistle, alerted the other staff. He jumps into the lake. He grabs Mr. Otto from the bottom of the lake at that point, brings him back up to the surface. Other staff helped get Otto onto a dock. They were able to use an artificial defibrillator, as well as performing CPR for close to half an hour on Bruce Otto before he started to breathe on his own. About the same time an ambulance arrived, taking him to a local hospital. This happened back on June the 5th. Amazingly, it's only been a couple of weeks, Bruce Otto has recovered. He's doing all right. He actually spoke to local media in Louisville. He said, "I'm not sure the English language has words for the depths of gratitude I have. It's just very emotional. How do you thank people for that?" And honestly, I don't know the answer other than you give them a hug, you say thank you, you try to pay it forward. But these 4 Eagle Scouts, along with the staff at Camp Crooked Creek, again, in the right place at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing to save the life of Bruce Otto. And we thank them all for their efforts as well as their knowledge, quite frankly. Again, I mean, we talk about being in the right place at the right time, but being able, having that knowledge, again, to know what to do in those circumstances, that's critically important as well. And it's the main reason why Bruce Otto is here today. Unfortunately, we got to wrap up the show. We have to get out of here today. But the good news is we'll be back tomorrow with another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. Also, don't forget, Wednesdays, we do our VIP Gold live chat with Hot Air's Ed Morrissey. I am so looking forward to talking about the Hunter Biden case with Ed tomorrow. You can be a part of it as well. All you have to do, go to bearingarms.com/subscribe. Use the promo code GUNRIGHTS, and you can get a significant savings on your VIP or VIP Gold membership. And in addition to supporting the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we do at Bearing Arms, we're going to give you exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. News stories and analysis that matter, because your support matters. And we thank you very much for it. Enjoy the rest of your 2A Tuesday. A bitter irony today with the news about Hunter Biden. We'll see you back here tomorrow for another edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. In the meantime, be well, be safe, and just like Hunter Biden, be free.